Welcome to Culture Alchemy, where we do a deep dive into film, TV, music, and the stories and trends lighting up the group chat. We'll discuss what it means, why it matters, and how it shapes us. I'm Antoinette.
And I'm Andrew. Each week we've got pop culture's hottest takes served fresh. We're turning pop culture into pure gold. This is Culture Alchemy.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Andrew. How are you doing?
Hello, Antoinette. I'm doing okay. I could be better. I'm actually fighting a bit of a cold. I know we're doing a deep dive into the '90s in this episode. If this was the '90s, I'd be having myself a Jolt Cola to get my energy up. Extra caffeine in that energy drink.
Jolt Cola, that is a deep cut. And yeah, you are right. We are here to talk about the 90s. I, too, I don't know, got whatever wild virus is spreading around Toronto like wildfire right now. And here's a throwback for you. Speaking of 90s, I actually went to go get a COVID test thinking that maybe that's what it was. Fortunately, it was not. But yeah, as Andrew said, we are both riding various waves of sickness, but we love the 90s so much. And of course, for all of you alchemists, we really wanted to connect with you as well. So we have decided to march on, soldier on, as it were. And couldn't be a better topic today. Those of you who are obviously listening to audio will not see that I am fully decked out, ready for the occasion to talk about the 90s. Maybe my favorite decade. I don't know. Certainly one of my favorites because I have my choker on, my animal print, and I do have a scrunchie with a side pony. So I am ready to go and excited to talk about the 90s because I've kind of noticed, Drew, that the 90s is back in a major way again. I don't know if it ever went anywhere, but it is definitely hip again to the fashion and music and movies and TV. I mean, 90s is all over the place. We just watched the Happy Gilmore 2 trailer, which is coming out on Netflix this summer. So it's further proof of the rabid nostalgia around the 90s right now. There are so many remakes being made right now. Happy Gilmore 2 is definitely one of those that it gives me the warm tinglies inside to see Happy again on screen. But I also want to know what you're thinking, Andrew. Like, were you a Happy Gilmore fan? What are your thoughts after seeing the trailer for Happy Gilmore 2?
It is definitely magic. That's the song that plays in Happy Gilmore 2 trailer. Very nostalgic. I love the 90s. I grew up with Happy Gilmore. I love that movie, and I can't believe the sequel's coming out now. Shooter McGavin is in it again, which I'm excited about. Ben Stiller returns as well. I still quote to this day some of the lines from Happy Gilmore, so I'm excited to see the sequel and see how it is.
Yeah, me too. And they've already got my money as far as I'm concerned. Actually, in fact, they literally already have my money because I don't have to go to the theater. I can actually watch it from the comfort of my home because it is a Netflix joint. And I'm hoping, I'm really hoping that it delivers. Like, I think it's going to be nice, like you said, to see people like Shooter McGavin back. It looks like, Ben Stiller is in there as well. But it will be weird to see Happy without so many people that have passed. Like, at this point, like, Grandma's passed, the actress who played her, Chubbs, the actor who played Chubbs is also gone. Bob Barker's passed away. So a lot of, the people that were really, really instrumental to like the cameos in the first movie are not going to be here. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with this now. And, the trailer like I said, gave me a warm and fuzzy feeling just because of that 90s nostalgia that I have for the first one. But yeah, this is going to be interesting. Did we need this sequel? I guess uh, time will tell once we get a chance to actually see it. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed that that this one delivers. I hope so. Anyway, but there's a lot we can dive into here. Is there anything in terms of movies from the 90s, since we're on the topic of sequels, are there any movies that you think could use a remake for the 90s, or that you would love to see the story continue on in some kind of a sequel or prequel maybe?
That's a great question. I mean, there's so many movies I love from the '90s. I would like to see. I would like to see like a Clueless. I would like to
Ooh.
maybe a Clueless reboot, maybe a Hackers reboot. I think
Oh,
could be great. I was a fan of Reality Bites, that movie.
oh
Maybe that
yes.
could be redone.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Empire Records, I mean, in a different setting, I think could be great as well. Those are some. Also, 10
Ooh.
Things I Hate About You, I think could be a great remake as well.
Oh, that's so all great movies. That's interesting. Empire Records. I actually just watched that the other day. I love that movie. And I mean, so many people they were featured in that movie now who are huge stars. It's kind of funny to go back and watch that one. That would be an interesting one to remake for modern day. Like, would that be a new store with new crew and new shenanigans, or would it be like the same store? Like, how would you switch that one up?
I would switch it up as in like a new store, obviously, but maybe a nostalgic store, maybe. But then it would also have to be a store that was turning into, a corporate store because all the characters in Empire Records were rebels, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
were so they had to adhere to the new kind of protocol of the corporate store. So I think something along that would be really cool
I like that.
for today's.
Yeah, yeah. That would be interesting because even the idea of going into a record store, I know vinyl is a huge thing now, like it's had its renaissance for a moment. But yeah, like going into a record store or like picking up a CD, like all these, they seem like relics now. Like it's just something so that I just love about that movie and other movies that showcase things that used to be experiences, like going into a blockbuster and renting a movie, or I used to work in like an HMV, which here in Canada, for those who are listening abroad, is like a huge mega store, kind of similar, actually, kind of very similar to Empire Records. And it was, yeah, one of those things I just loved, just browsing through like old records and CDs. And I would love to see, yeah, that kind of a movie again, which I think would be an interesting thing to do now because it would kind of
Yeah,
feel retro, right? The idea of going and
right.
like picking out, although again, much respect to those of you who are sitting there with your vinyl collections. Like that's definitely a huge thing here in Toronto, and I'm sure lots of other places that people may be listening from. But yeah, the idea of like even just going and picking out records with everything being so digital now, that whole idea of that movie coming out now it takes on a totally different meaning.
And no, I agree totally. And yeah, that's something that in the '90s you could go into like a video store and look through the movies and rent them, and then you could you go to the movie theater, like we talked about in our last episode, and also you could go to like a record store, right, and check out the different releases because in the '90s CDs had come out now, so people were we don't listen to albums like we used to in the '90s, right? So that's one of the things which is missing in today's day and age as well.
Hmm. that idea of just pressing play and hearing from start to finish exactly how the artist intended for us to hear their work. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I just love, but I mean, even with things being digital now, I'm one of those people that I still go to bookstores. I still go to the library. I like to hold something in my hand. Like I loved, like you said, the experience of going to a store and picking out something. I think that was one of my favorite things that I can remember doing, like with friends, is like going to Blockbuster or with a date, like going to Blockbuster and like picking out a movie. You learn a lot about people just and about the things that they fancy when you go into places like that, and let them just kind of guide you through this kind of soundtrack of their lives or the movies that had impacted them. That's like a great experience that I think if they were to bring back, I'm actually going to put this on record now. I should trademark this, but like that kind of a store, that kind of an experience, like I think that would be something that people would go for again now, like a Blockbuster. And I know there's, I think, still one that exists maybe somewhere in the world. But that kind of experience, like bringing people together, curating movies, like it's a whole vibe, and definitely something I'm very fond of from the '90s. But I want to touch on something that you said about Empire Records, which I think will help us dive into this whole conversation around the question that I brought us here tonight to address, which is why is there so much nostalgia around this decade? Obviously, you know, we can debate what's the best decade. I mean, there's really no answer that can satisfy everybody here, but the 90s is one that, as we mentioned at the top of the show, has come back with a fury in terms of fashion, in terms of music, in terms of television. We'll get into some of the other details around those art forms, but in general, it seems like everybody who lived in that period, if you were a millennial now and you were, in the 90s as a teen, you probably have nostalgia around it. But something that I've noticed that I think has been even more, I don't know if I'll say unusual, but that's the word that's coming to mind, so let me throw it out. That seems a little bit unusual, is that I'm seeing much younger people like rocking like Nirvana tees and, wearing, bucket hats again and bringing back 90s in terms of fashion and music and slang. And I'm curious as to why they would have nostalgia around that decade. So yeah, let's play this out a little bit and maybe talk about why we think the 90s is having a moment now, and perhaps what makes the 90s a decade that people have such a nostalgia around. So big questions there, but I'll pass the mic to you, Drew, just to get your thoughts on that.
I would say, I grew up in the 90s. I love the 90s. I just read something where online where Gen Zers, a lot of Gen Zers, like you said, are rocking like the band T-shirts, which was a staple of the 90s. And a lot of what they're looking at online is like from the 90s, like interesting things from the 90s, because music with the rise of hip hop and grunge and R&B and the emergence of new genres like drum and bass, alternative rock and trance as well. Television with like Seinfeld, The Simpsons, Friends. Film was like, films like Pulp Fiction were just like giving new voice to indie films. Forrest Gump, Lion King. There's a new Lion King movie coming out. There's another Toy Story movie coming out. I just saw a poster for I Know What You Did Last Summer.
No.
There's going to be a reboot soon as well.
Wow.
Right? And then the fashion of the 90s too is in, like with like grunge and hip hop, streetwear, Doc Martens and cardigans, plaid shirts, band T-shirts, like I said. It was just a very interesting time, and it was before cell phones as well, and the
Mm,
technology was just starting out too. So it was more like a simple time without cell phones as well,
mm.
and there was a lot of the culture impact of the '90s was. I mean, we're talking about it, 20 years later, so 30 years later, so.
Hmm. So many great points there. I completely agree that it it feels now, at the time of this recording, that it was a simpler time back then. And I think you're right. Like there was technology, but not so much technology that it basically changed the nature of how we lived. Like we still had a lot of opportunities to gather in person. People were still, as far as TV, movies, we had much fewer choices, and I think you could kind of count on you know congregating with people, whether it's at work or school, knowing that for the most part everyone was kind of watching the same thing. So the classic water cooler conversation kind of just was easier to predict what people were going to be talking about. And things were more of an event. I feel as if you're right. Like the technology, of course, it's a whole other show we can get, which we probably will at some point get into. But it just, the spread of tech changed everything. And I think the 90s was um, a time where we had just enough of a good thing. And at the same time, we still, like, I can remember, you know, um, being a teen and having to call people at their homes. Like, this is how I know kind of where someone sits in terms of the demo when I'm talking to them. Because if they can remember having to, like, if you had to call someone, whether it's a friend or even worse, it was someone that you liked, you have to call like a boy's home and then ask for that person by name. Your family kind of knew what you were into because I mean, I did not get a cell phone. I was a late adopter, though, I have to say. I did not get a cell phone until I was in university. So,
Me as well.
was that the same for you?
Yeah, around university,
Yeah.
yeah. I was a late adopter as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I was calling friends up and like asking for them. And so my parents kind of knew. They knew who I was talking to. If somebody was calling for me, they would like, oh, you've got I don't know, so and so's on the phone for you. They kind of knew what I was up to. So there was still a connection that I think technology hadn't yet penetrated. So it was a simpler time in that way. And I also, think there's something about, so I've heard about this theory as well about trends. I don't know if you've heard about this 30
That
year.
is one thing you mentioned that I don't miss about the '90s is the home phone. Okay,
Mm,
because when I would have a call talking to my friends or whoever, or potential romantic interest,
hmm.
my mom would pick up the phone as well, and she would start
Yeah.
talking on the phone. I
Yeah.
do not miss that. Sure.
The inevitable interruption and totally. And if you had siblings, for sure one of them was also going to pick up
That
the
was
phone.
awesome.
So I had the same thing for sure. At my
Yeah, or my brothers, and they'd be like, Andrew's talking to a girl,
right.
okay? And then they would, yeah, that would be very awkward and embarrassing. So I do not miss
No,
that.
it's true. Actually, there's probably a lot of things that have been enabled, let's say, by the privacy that cell phones provide, and
Yeah.
obviously, uh, there's a lot of things that I don't miss from that period. But even as you say it now, I'm sort of smiling because I remember how frustrating it could be when someone picks up a call in the middle of your call, or like they're calling
Yeah.
for you in the house. If it's anything like my house, it was like screaming through the house because like there was one or two handsets, and if you were in a different part of the house or outside or something, someone would have to call for you, and it just yeah, it imagine like having to wait even 2 or 3 minutes now for someone to actually get to the phone. It seems like it's unthinkable, but to your earlier point, that instant gratification that we have now has created this expectation that the person should be there to answer you whenever. Like part of I personally think for some people, some of their
It
anxiety.
was a good thing to be less accessible.
Yeah,
Not, yeah,
yeah.
I
Do you
agree.
know? Because I don't know if our listeners will necessarily feel this way, but there probably are a few. I know I've had conversations with friends who've had to change up their habits or had to put apps on their phone to keep them from using the phone, like to actually monitor their usage because um, there's this constant Pavlovian response. Like if I hear another iPhone, I'm wired by design to think it's my phone or like to respond to it. So
Yeah.
it is something that I do think about in terms of, yes, we have a lot of convenience now, and that's great, but it was a simpler time back when. And I think also too, probably in some ways, um, maybe more connected in some ways. So I can totally see.
I agree because without the technology that we have now, like you weren't aware of what anyone else was doing. There was less comparison,
Yeah,
and it made things more interesting and original.
yeah.
Like we were pretty free to do what we wanted to without the world knowing the next day or our parents. You know, and nobody could reach us every second of the day like they can today.
Exactly, exactly. So it really fundamentally shifted once we got to this period where everybody is connected online all the time, and you can see everyone and what they're doing at all times and who they're doing it with. And so it's, I think, created as many challenges as it's solved. So it's very, yeah, it very much has dawned on me that when I see Gen Z and Gen Alpha now reverting back to flip phones, like flip phones are in again, I think that's got to be a response to everything that's happening right now with technology and just the constant bombardment of your social presence. Like I think obviously it's not a trend, it's not going to go away, but I think people are sort of, like you said, yearning for that simpler time. And the 90s was kind of that sweet spot where there was enough tech to blow our minds, like, and make things a little bit easier, but not so much that we felt like it ruled our lives, right? So, yeah, there was definitely
Mhm.
a much simpler way of communicating. And I think the 90s is providing a lot of people with a lot of escapism right now. And also, I was also reading about this really interesting theory that every 30 years, there's a resurfacing of cultural trends. So that there's some kind of a 3 decade nostalgia theory that I was also reading about. So we're pretty much hitting
Okay.
it. So for the 90s to be nostalgic now, it cyclically makes sense, right? And why a lot of things are coming back from the 90s because people are capitalizing on that nostalgia. I can't even tell you how many, bands from the 90s I've seen on, their revival tours. Like I know we're actually going to see Oasis like later this summer, which is wild to me as well too. And there's been so many other bands that have also come out of the woodworks. Like I've recently heard people talking about going to see Limp Bizkit, and I just saw Collective Soul. There's just so many bands.
And I just saw Garbage announced for another reunion tour as well.
It is wild. Aqua, back to like, I think there is just something to be said about the 90s and the variety of music. That's another reason why I think people really,
All
really
we
dig
need
it.
now is Spice Girls and maybe Ace of Base, and then I'll die a happy man.
You know
Okay.
what? Spice Girls would be wild for so many reasons. If they got back together, that would be a global mega. I mean, the world would stop. That might actually be the Spice Girls getting back together and doing a show would be wild. Like I'd be down for that. I think there's just certain shows, certain bands that if they get back together, it's such an event just to even get them all in the same room. That would be something for sure. And I could totally see that. Is there another band or any other band that you would like to see on tour from the 90s? Or maybe Twist
I
before you answer that, sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to throw a little twist at you, actually. Um, Maybe it makes it easier, but if it could be any band, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a band um, that's together in terms of all members are alive. I'll put it that way. If there's like a band that you wish you could revive,
Okay.
resurrect, the Resurrection Tour, what would be one of the bands you'd love to see?
Um, I guess if bands that are alive, I would like to, yeah, like we were saying, I would like to see Spice Girls. I would like to see Destiny's Child come back
Hmm.
again. I would like to see Ace of Base. I would like to, I mean, yeah, Guns N' Roses is already, they do reunion tours as well. We saw Limp Bizkit,
Mm.
do a reunion tour also. I'm excited. I think I'm going to go see Garbage, so I'm
Mm.
excited for that. As far as a band from the 90s, somehow resurrected, it would definitely be Nirvana.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nirvana was that was you couldn't go anywhere without some type of like Nirvana was everywhere in the 90s, and to this day I like to appreciate the music, and like I see people rocking the Nirvana t-shirts all the time,
Hmm.
and just like yeah, that would be I think that would be my band to resurrect. It would be Nirvana.
That's a good choice. Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with that. Maybe the poster, um, children for '90s grunge.
In the 90s, we saw the rise of Britpop too, Natalie Imbruglia. I would like to see um, Torn. I would like to see that live. I think that would be the Cranberries too. The Cranberries, I would love to see reunited.
Mm.
Yeah, that was we saw the rise of girl power in the 90s. I was a big fan of 90s pop. I mean, I did love a lot of the grunge for sure. With but I was right into the 90s pop, especially the Britpop too. Like Take That. It's just a great period for film and music and TV. Like, there was that rebellious spirit that you were talking about as well. Technology was there, but it wasn't overwhelming. Like we were saying, like you could do what you wanted when you wanted, and you didn't have to record everything, and you didn't. People didn't know where you were, didn't have that access to you at all times, as well as you didn't have access to your to these artists as well, like you did today, which I think has an impact as well, because there was that mystery, and like there was real rock stars back then, and real stars. Today it seems like that is lost, the
Mm.
mystery of the star, like it is today, because you know
Mm.
what they're doing. They're just like regular people, but we can see them on social media all the time. Um, and then like the style, was fire as well. Like to this day, I love a good band T-shirt. I love a good plaid T-shirt. I love cardigans. Doc Martens. There is fashion that I don't want to have a comeback from the 90s. I don't want to see seashell necklaces. All right,
Okay.
and I don't want to do the frosted tips again either. They can stay in the 90s. All right,
Oh my God.
those
Yes.
fashion trends can stay in the
Yes. Yeah.
90s as
Preach on
well.
that one. Oh no. Yeah. Let's leave that where it was. I agree. I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, that's a good call on that. I feel as if the '90s never left. I think it always comes back in. It's always kind of in style. So much of what's on trend now is like just stuff that I just wear. Like I don't see it as like being a fashion trend, but I do think there are certain things that yeah can stay in the '90s. And you've hit on a couple. Definitely the frosted tips. Yeah, we can leave that. We can leave that in the '90s for sure. I think that's safe to say. But the '90s, when you think about it, and you just reminded me of a couple of
Yeah, and
things.
unique too. It
One,
was everything was
effortlessly
fresh
cool,
too, right?
effortlessly cool. Band tees, the flannel. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. effortlessly cool and comfortable. Even when I think about how women dressed, it was super comfortable. Like even it's not exclusive to the 90s, but I think about like the 90s icons, like like even like a Drew Barrymore or like in the 90s for it's hard to escape Friends, right? Like the Friends phenomenon and Rachel and all these different trends, but they were very um laid back, casual, and comfortable. Like throw on a white tee and like a moto jacket, leather jacket over it. Like it was very much like I kind of don't care, but I super care. But I'm going to be comfortable and look good. It had that again that sweet spot there. So even when people were dressed kind of down and minimally, um, it was like you said, it was still original. There was still a feeling that people could follow certain trends, but nobody kind of looked the same. It was really, really interesting to me to think about what's in trend now and what's coming back now. Mary Janes, platforms, bucket hats, slip dresses, crop tops, are like Gen Alpha and Gen Z are bringing back the crop top. Like it's just a very simple, comfortable, but still um, in some ways like put together and styled. So I really like that, the effortlessness of it. And, you know, something that we didn't talk about, and I'm now really just clicking into when we say it was a simpler time. 9/11 hadn't happened. 9/11 hadn't happened. So um, there was it was a simpler time. Like I was just thinking about the differences now and everything pre September 11th in terms of security, in terms of our how we travel, everything. It was a very different time. So I think things just changed significantly. Um, and I think that there is a real sense of, yeah, it was just simpler. Um, it was, yeah, a time where there's a sense of escapism, I think. And I'm sure that there are so many other things that people could point to, but I think that's one of those big things. Like, every generation kind of has their moment. Like the generations are defined by something that happened in their period that they were living. 9/11 is one that for, people that were born before it and can remember life before it and life after it, it's so starkly different in terms of how we do so many things and our feelings around security and cybersecurity and all these things that I think not unwarranted, but definitely created a more fear-based sense of living. And there was just a freedom. And I'm saying this now, and I'm sure somebody's listening going, Jesus, girl, like you should have been around the 60s or you should have been around the 70s. Like there was real freedom then. Every generation will probably have that. But like the 90s was like, yeah, this sort of untapped, it felt simpler. And probably because it actually was. You know?
I agree. That was very well said. Yeah, I mean, simpler. There was a rebellious spirit. It was a more innocent time too. Like you were saying, it
Yeah.
was before 9/11, which changed everything. And, and security and fear mongering and the technology was starting with the internet, but we didn't have you didn't have access to everyone at all times, as well as file sharing, which ripped the music industry apart. Was just in its early stages as well. That's why to this day the Gen Zers are, adopting the style from the '90s and yeah, I mean like all the music from the '90s, the R&B from the '90s, TLC, was all the movies from the '90s, like we talked about. It was just it was probably one of the best decades, if not the best decade for movies, including a lot of critics. I mean, a lot of movie critics say that the '90s were the best films of any decade, as far as the amount of films that came out during the '90s, as well as R&B peaked in the '90s as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. I mean, there was a lot of people that are innovating and pushing the envelope in the 90s for sure. But at the same time, again, there was a balance. I remember being outdoors a lot more, just having more freedom in that way too. But I do think that the one thing that I'm sure we can all agree on, regardless of whether you are millennial, you are Gen Xer, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. Hey, maybe we have some boomers listening as well too. Hey, boomers, we see you. I think the '90s is back in a big way. We have lots to look forward to in the coming months as well too. Like as we were saying, lots of things being revived from TV to music.
I'm very excited for the Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot. That's one of my favorite shows of all time, and yeah, the original show still holds up to this day. But I'm excited for to see the reboot and see where they take it as well.
I would love to hear from our listeners, what their thoughts are around the decade, and what they loved, if they can remember what they maybe didn't like about the '90s, and all the things that they're happy to see come back with a vengeance. I would love to hear that. So let us know what your thoughts are on this decade. What do you love? What did you hate? What trends would you like to see come back? Which trends would you like to see left in the past? Let us know all your thoughts on that. And we'll look forward to hearing from you on the socials. Andrew, how are we feeling? Do you feel complete? Is there anything else you want to mention before we peace out?
No, I think we did a deep dive into the '90s, and I think we hit on everything. I mean, like we were saying, it was a simpler time. There was also a lack of corporate greed as well during the '90s, which was which was a great thing as well.
Most stuff, yeah. And well, I guess like all good things must come to an end. We're going to wrap on our deep dive on the '90s. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the show.
But before you go, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on Instagram at culture_alchemy. We want to keep the conversation going.
Until next time, alchemists.
Stay curious.